We're rolling. Why the heck would Alex Hudson choose a Sound transit station? I have no idea.
You have no idea. It's an example of the kind of public infrastructure that I think is really important to build a great city that works for everybody. Of course, you know me, I've been a transportation advocate and champion for a very long time, an organization that I helped to build this station right here, but more so than transportation, it exemplifies public infrastructure, right? It's transit, it's housing, it's parks, it's libraries, it's community centers. All of these things create this beautiful city and as what will help make us be a world-class city.
Yeah, the Transportation Choices Coalition. I mean, I was kidding. I knew why you chose this spot, but how does that prepare you to run for city council?
Yeah. The thing is that I have spent a decade of my career working on making life better for people here in the city of Seattle. And this is not an easy job. Making government work for people is hard. And so throughout my career, I've been able to bring people together, build very broad coalitions, solve problems, and get things done. And those are the exact skills and qualifications that you need from a city council person to be able to, pass legislation, oversee a huge budget, and bring people together to solve some of our greatest challenges.
You've been car free for a while. In fact, tearing the wall down, you showed up without a car on a bike to come here, and you've lived this lifestyle. So you live it on a daily basis. What do you think this city has done right with transit and transportation? What do you think it's not doing that you would try and change if elected?
Yeah, I think we've done a lot right. We have one of the best bus networks in the country, and our light rail system has the support of the broad base of Seattle. We've helped to do really innovative programs like make transit free for every kid in Seattle, and then we expanded that to the whole of the state. And transit here in the city of Seattle is much better than it is in many other places, and I will be the first to be a champion of the hardworking people who make that happen. And because I love this system in the city so much, I also want to critique our system and ask for it to be better. Being car-free is not easy. In fact, I oftentimes have a lot of places I don't get to go because of that and those hard choices. We need to make our transit faster, more frequent, and more reliable. The city can do that by creating, transit priority lanes, transit jump lanes. We need to make transit safer. Right now, a lot of people are not having a pleasant experience on transit because these large social issues are playing themselves out in our public infrastructure. So we need to address that for sure, and we need to have better rider dignity. We need to have better bus stations that are well lit with garbage cans, so that you can feel rewarded for making a good choice.
So you do believe that that's a problem right now, public safety on transit?
Of course, yeah.
And it's reduced ridership.
Yeah.
In terms of transit Center City Connector?
Love the Center City Connector. I've been a champion of that and helping to bring the funding to the city for that through the Fair Share Coalition. We need to make good on the promises to neighborhoods that have the system, especially Chinatown International District, who were promised that system is going to be connected. And I don't think we should walk away from the future of downtown.
The Capitol Hill blog has covered this campaign extensively. They had an interview with you that if you're elected, the council member that you would like to most emulate is Teresa Mosqueda. Not Shama Sawant, who has represented this district?
No, not Shama Sawant, who has represented this district. You and I were talking. One thing I think is really important is to recognize it's your job to serve your constituents. And so I want to be a responsive, transparent, and accessible city council person who cares about this district. I also want to be a collaborator. I've been a coalition builder my entire career, and so I want to listen in good faith and know that we have much more in common about solving our problems than we do against. So I'm not interested in just being a loud voice or, being a a staunch proponent of a ideology. I want this to be a beautiful place for people.
You said that very nicely. But Mosqueda, she was also against the recent drug possession law vote. You just said that there are public safety challenges on public transit. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with her stance on the public drug consumption law?
Yeah, I would love to be in favor of a drug consumption law that I thought was going to make our city better. And so I worry that what was passed is an empty promise. Has many great things in it, right? It's stated intentions about diverting people into the things we know work: treatment, services, support. But the reality is that there was no actual budget to do any of that. We have nothing to divert people into, and we don't have that next step of getting people the support that they need so that they don't just end up right back on the street being miserable and bringing down the quality of life here in the city. So I am not opposed to getting serious about this issue, but I am not interested in more of the same kind of empty promises that aren't backed up to solve problems at the scale that they need to be.
But with all that said, isn't there an argument here that you just acknowledge that it's not safe for a lot of people on transit because of fentanyl use and drug abuse, that there should be an enforcement component there so police can crack down on that?
Well, I mean, and I think, again, I want to be in support of a policy that does exactly what you're talking about, but it doesn't have that second or third step that makes that actually real. We know that our jails are filled. The people are unlikely to be booked on these charges, and we don't have the diversion necessary. So when we have that interaction with someone and say, what's happening here isn't okay and you need help, we have nothing to take them to. And so that's not a real solution. That's an empty promise. And I'm not interested in that. I want to see our city get better. I want to see us take care of people. I want things to be safer, and I know what it's going to take to get it done. On
a lighter note, the Capitol Hill blog also asked you about a statement that you think wouldn't go over well in your district. And you said, our 4-time WNBA champions, the unstoppable Seattle Storm, is all the basketball team our city needs.
I know.
Come on, those are fighting words in a district where you're running to get somebody with a basketball background.
It's not meant to be pointed at anyone. I'm a huge Storm fan. We were season ticket holders for a long time, and I love that team.
So that's a way of asking you, how ideologically different are you than your opponent?
I would say in across the races, you talk to a lot of candidates, right? We all kind of talk about the same values. We all talk about wanting to have a city that works for people, and we all talk about and believe genuinely in solving those problems. And the differentiator is that, I've got a lot of the background and career in doing that hard work of making government actually create solutions for people that makes it so that I, will be an effective leader serving our district. And so I hope that, I have a lot of respect for anybody who's willing to be a candidate for office. And I hope that what folks will really realize is that I've got a lot of delivery in doing that.
Well, let me ask you about crime, because this is a serious topic in this district. There have been mass shootings on Capitol Hill. There have been multiple shootings, in fact, on I-5 as well. There was an organized crime ring with an explosion. It has been a bad calendar year for this district.
Yes.
How do you fix the problems with crime and violent crime in your district?
Yeah, we need to do a couple of things. One, we need to have a police response that can address those issues. And one of the solutions that I think is really important is that we create this CARES team, that we really support a team like that, so that mental, behavioral health, housing, those can be addressed by service workers and by medical professionals. That'll allow us to have our police department be addressing those really serious issues, those crimes. We can make better use of our police resources by having them address crime. The other thing we need to do is we need to have upstream solutions that really prevent crime from happening in the first place. A lot of what we're seeing with the gun violence is coming, really unfortunately, from our young people. So we need to have mentors and programs. We need to invest in community violence prevention. We need to invest in resources that support young people and get them on a pathway to a life that doesn't involve violence. And so those are some of I also think that we need to recognize that safety is a whole of government response. We need to have every light in our street lights needs to be working. Our parks need to be activated. Our garbage needs to get picked up. We need to have those pieces in place so that that it's clear that safety is what's happening in your neighborhood.
I did not hear hire more cops.
Well, we've really struggled to hire cops even with $30,000 bonuses, right? And so that's a national issue. And so I want to make good use of the police resources that we have by asking them to really focus on criminal activity and finding other folks to address those issues that are better served by others.
If you're elected, potentially you would be involved with negotiating any sort of guild contract that has gone on for years. The guild president has gone on the record saying that's the reason why they're having trouble recruiting. So if elected, what would you want to see in a new guild contract?
Yeah, I would think there's a lot of room for improvement in our guild contract. One is, I think we need to make sure that our Office of Police Accountability has subpoena power to hold our officers accountable. I think we need to have the ability to have more civilians on the Police Accountability Board, and I think we need to be able to address some of like the kind of the overtime issues that are really driving up the size of that budget. It's been really unfortunate to see so many unprofessional and frankly despicable comments coming from folks in police, and that no public servant should be allowed to speak about the people that they're to protect in that way, right? We don't allow any of our public servants to do that. I worry that creates part of our recruiting problem by making it so that young people who want to step up to serve their community and be police officers may not be looking at our department and thinking that that's a place where they're going to feel comfortable and at home. So I think that there is quite a bit of room to make sure that our police, who are dedicated public servants, are able to be held to the highest standard of professionalism as they're serving our city, which I think is what everybody expects.
I mentioned the crime, the explosion on I-5. When that is related to homelessness, objectively, I think one can stand in the city of Seattle and say it is better than it was a year ago, that more people are in shelter. We don't see the tents on the streets that we saw maybe a year ago, with the exception of near the freeways, where it becomes this jurisdictional issue with the state. And that is where we saw the organized crime and the explosion. You continue to see issues there. Should the city take a harder line with the state about making sure that those encampments along freeways where there have been problems are clear?
Of course. Yeah, and a deeper partnership is the way that I would put that, to really prioritize getting those people connected to shelter, to services, or to accountability.
Yeah, where would those people go? I mean, because a lot of what we've seen along the freeways, in the very least, has been very complicated: drug addiction, etc.
And that kind of goes to that thing that we were talking about. The city has to invest in things like the Overdose Recovery Center. That's in the legislation. That's a thing I really support. I was the first in our race to talk about how important that is. But we need those second and third steps, because we know that getting people connected after an overdose, getting them on the medically assisted treatment that helps them break that cycle of addiction is important and it's critical. But that's step one. We need step two and step three. And right now we're really missing all of that at the scale of the problem. I think about COVID, right? We had a disease that was ravaging our society and costing us our loved ones. And addiction is similar to that in many ways. And we are not in any way resourcing the fentanyl addiction crisis that is causing so much misery and disruption at the same scale of that. So I want to see a robust public health approach so that people are taken care of and that our city feels livable.
So the question I am asking everybody is, I've been around long enough, I've heard tons of different ideas for how to handle the most complicated issue of our times, and that is homelessness. It is the number one issue for a lot of people.
Yes.
So what's your big idea to change the trajectory?
Yeah, it's housing. So we know that homelessness is a housing issue. We have a housing crisis. The crisis is that housing is too unaffordable. It's too unaffordable because there's not enough of it, and there's not enough of it because we've made it too slow and expensive and hard to build housing. So that is the long-term issue. But right now what we need to do is get shelter space. I talk to a lot of outreach workers and the folks who implement these programs. And on any given night in the city of Seattle, there are less than a dozen shelter spaces that are available to people. That is Totally unacceptable. So we need to have way more shelters. I've helped to site 2 homeless shelters in my neighborhood to create those actual solutions. We need to have more tiny house villages. We need to have more housing, and we need to keep that housing permanent. You asked, like, what's the big idea? I mean, the thing is, Chris, as you know just as well as I do, it's not about not having the right idea. It's about having the people with the right experience to be able to do this. Government work is hard work. And so bringing people together and then putting our shoulder to the wheel of actually delivering those solutions is what the job of the city council person is. It's not to create brand new ideas. We've got plenty of good ones of those. We just need to implement them at the speed and scale and the urgency of the problem.
And that fits into zoning. The state obviously passed the bill this year that does create density in cities like Seattle, but I've heard people running that say it doesn't go far enough, that there's more that can be done. What more can be done besides what the state already passed?
Yeah, we can expand our comprehensive plan, right, as the opportunity to set that 20-year vision. I used to sit on the Puget Sound Regional Council Transportation Policy Board, so I looked at a lot of forecasting of how our region needs to grow. And we know that there's 200,000 units of housing that we need in order to catch up with the growth that we're expected. So our state legislature created some increased density, but just that basic math, that doesn't get us to that 200,000. So we need to plan for a comprehensive plan that actually meets those growth projections, and that involves building more housing in more places and making it faster and easier and cheaper to do so.
So you know this, the tenor in politics in the city of Seattle has been ramped up in the last 5-10 years. Council members don't like what's happening in council chambers. Council members, frankly, aren't all that popular, according to most polls. Why put yourself through this? It's easier to be a transportation policy expert than it is to be sometimes a council member in the city of Seattle.
Yeah, I love this city. I'm a parent. My kid goes to Garfield, and I want her to be able to make a future in this city in the same way that I was able to be a kid from East King County who had a dream and got to come to Seattle and make it true. It is a hard job, and it is not going to be easy, and these are some big and entrenched problems. But I believe that our city has everything we need to be the best city in the country. We've got hardworking people, we have economic prosperity, we have this beautiful natural beauty in this temperate climate, and it is hard, but it is not going to be impossible. And so I'm just excited about bringing my proven track record of delivering solutions by bringing people together to City Hall, and excited about the opportunities that means to leave a better future for today and tomorrow.
Are you ready for the longest job interview of your life to be over?
I definitely think that this has been an interesting and long experience, and I am looking forward to Election Day.
And you survived the loudest environment, at least for this. So thanks for sitting with me. Thanks for standing with me in this case.
Yes. Thanks for coming out.